Okay, welcome. Is everyone happy? Are you happy to be here? This is the capital of the United States of America. Isn't this a great place to be on the 100th anniversary of the state of Albania? If you're Albanian, you got to say yes, right? Yes, come on. A lot of details went into this, and I'm not going to tell you what they are. You'll see as we go. Some of the stuff, you saw your program, just see it. Shirley and I worked just in the last week to put that together so you could see the important documents that are the foundation for the relationship between the Jewish people and the Albanian people. Two ancient people speaking languages that go back thousands of years. The Illyrian language is the Albanian language and the Hebrew language. And don't forget, maybe you don't know, 15 million Jews in the world, 15 million Albanians. 3.5 million in Israel, 3.5 million in Albania. Two peoples that have been oppressed, dispersed, but now they come together. Are you happy that we're together today with the Jewish people? Okay, now, saying that, I need to introduce you, I want to introduce you to a good friend of mine who helped me get elected in 1984, Ronald Rettner. He's the chairman of this. He and his wife, Karen, are philanthropists. They made a substantial donation to the Albanian American Foundation so we could hire some important people to be here in this room so that what goes on here today is going to be seen around the world, in Israel, in the Balkans, in the US, and it's going to go because there are other extra cameramen taking pictures that we will then put on different videos. What's a message if you can't get it out, right? How do you get elected? You need to repeat your message. If you're a good person, if you have a good message, it's got to be then projected. That's what we're going to be doing after this event. Let me tell you about Ron Rettner. I met Ron, we live in the same county, Westchester County. When he heard I was running for Congress, like most people, he thought I was crazy. You're an accountant. You're not a politician. You never ran for anything. You're in a Democratic district, Dick Ottinger's district. It's going to be tough. But you know, Joe, I like you. I'm going to help you. And he did. And his stepfather at that time was a rabbi. And I had dinner at their house. We had seders. I got to know Ron and his family, Karen, very well. And he had little kids at that time, as I did. And Ron and Karen have been good friends. But for this, Ron, 4 months ago, told me, he said, you know, I know what you've done for the Albanian people, you and Shirley. I know what you've done with the Jewish people, but not enough people know it. Let me work with you. I have my friend Ezra Friedlander. He's a professional. Let's hire him. Whatever he costs, I'm going to pay for. I'll make a contribution. He did. With that, let me introduce you to a philanthropist, a very successful real estate entrepreneur, Ron Rettner, who's chairman of this dinner.
Well, I would first welcome all of you here to this historic event. I learned from Joe the important contribution that the Albanian people made in rescuing their Jewish population during the Holocaust. Many Albanians did this at their own peril. They did this and risked their lives, and in many cases it cost them their lives. Sadly, after the war, the Albanian story was not broadcast to the world because the communist regime suppressed it. Many of the heroes, of course, sadly, were killed by the communists in the 1940s, those heroes that put their lives on the line to save the Albanian Jews. So when Joe asked me to help him with this, there was no doubt in my mind that I would do this. It's not only a message of Albanian heroism during World War II, more importantly, it's a contemporary message. The Albanians did not turn their back on a discriminated minority. The same message should have been instilled in the world with Rwanda, with the bloodshed in Sierra Leone, with the bloodshed inflicted by the Serbians against the Croats and Bosnian Muslims. There are too many cases in the contemporary world where people allow indiscriminate punishment, indiscriminate suffering, and indiscriminate manslaughter. The Albanian message, where everyone is invited into their homes as their guests and they are to be protected, is a message that should resonate around the world. It is a very important message. I am proud to be part of this message. It is just so important. And the beauty of it all is that it was Muslims and Christians that came together to say in Albania to save the Jewish people. They looked beyond any religious differences or racial differences or historical differences, and it's just an important message of ecumenism where people came together to do the right thing. And that's the message of today. I also want to congratulate the Albanians on their 100th anniversary of independence from the Ottoman Empire and Ottoman repression, also a very, very significant milestone. So Joe, Shirley, the Congresswoman, I am proud to be part of that, part of this experience, part of this historic, momentous event. I want to now introduce Rabbi Warren Stone, an old friend back more than 40 years, who is the rabbi at Temple Emmanuel in Kensington, Maryland, who will give the benediction for this historic event. Warren and I go back over 40 years, a dear person, a dear friend, and a very, very well-known and accomplished rabbi. Thank you, Warren.
Very good, Ron.
We haven't had a chance to see each other in many years, and it's wonderful to be reunited and have his daughter Meredith and Justin as part of our Temple Emmanuel community in our Washington area. Most distinguished, honest guests, congressional leaders, Makor Chaim, God's source of all life, Ribono Shel Olam, we gather now for this historic moment commemorating the 100th anniversary of the Albanian independence from Ottoman rule, acknowledging the courage and heroism of the Albanian people, Christians and Muslims, to rescue the entire Jewish population of Albania during the darkest years of the Holocaust. We're grateful to the Albanian American Civic League and the leadership of Congressman Joe DioGuardi and Shirley DioGuardi, and Ron and Karen Rettner, and many guests of honor. Thank you, God, for our food, for our sustenance, for the bread of the earth. May the spirit and courage of human freedom and heroism live within us, uplift us as we face our common futures. Amen.
We're very fortunate to have Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, Congresswoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, who's chairwoman of the House International Committee on Foreign Affairs, and she has a schedule, as you can imagine, that's daunting, as most members do today. We have had a long relationship with Ileana. Many of you probably know that she was actually born in Cuba and escaped in the early 1950s, and as a result, she has a strong sense of human rights. She knows what it's like to live in very, very difficult conditions, and she's brought that to her work in the House. She also happens to be married to someone who fought in the Vietnam War, another historic time in our history. She's worked together with us in trying to bring lasting peace and stability to the Balkans. She was the winner of our Balkans Peace Award about 5 years ago, and we'd like to welcome her to the stage now to make brief remarks. Welcome her.
Joe and Shirley are a power couple, are they not? My golly, give them a hand. And they're so gracious in accommodating my schedule. My dad's elderly and in not the best health, so I'm gonna fly home and fly back. But keep him in your prayers, and I would be so honored. But I would not leave today without first coming here. So I told my scheduler, yes, get me on a plane, but first I need to come speak to Joe and Shirley's group, because to me, this subject has got some real significance. As you heard from Shirley and Joe, I chair the Foreign Affairs Committee, and we deal with these kinds of issues all day long. But it's so significant that we're building bridges between communities, and to see this bridge building between the Jewish and Albanian people that has been going on for many a year. But the fact that you're highlighting it and books have been written about it, it's time to get the word out so that more of the population knows that Albanians stepped up when the going was tough. There was the Albanian people. So thank you for everything that you've done. And of course, we're here to celebrate Albania's independence and the courage and the compassion that the Albanian people have always demonstrated, even under the most terrible conditions. And I must point out before I continue that my colleague, I served with Connie Morella for many a year in the United States Congress. Connie, Ambassador Morella, who's got deep roots to Albania, is here with us. But I'm especially pleased to be here with Joe and Shirley, who have done so much to ensure that Albania receives the recognition and the support that it deserves, that it has earned. And 100 years ago today, the people of Albania issued their Declaration of Independence after centuries of oppression by the Ottoman Empire. Unfortunately, Albania's hard-won freedom was nearly overwhelmed by a succession of new occupiers, including secret plans by the victors of World War I to partition it. Those plans were thwarted only by the determination of the people of Albania to fight for their freedom, and also by the direct intervention of President Woodrow Wilson, who laid the foundation for the strong connection between our two countries that continues to this very day. But even then, Albania's fight was not over. Large numbers of Albanians were left outside of the new borders, with deadly consequences in Kosovo and elsewhere in the Balkans. During World War II, Albania was invaded and occupied first by Italian and then by German forces. For decades after the war, Albania was dominated by a brutally repressive communist dictatorship that turned the entire country into a virtual prison. But the determination of the Albanian people to be free has never wavered, regardless of the cost. 20 years ago, the Albanian people overthrew their communist rulers and slowly and painfully began the reconstruction of their country. Who would have believed that Albanians would so quickly have become a democracy, a full member of NATO, and a strong ally of the United States? The impossible happened once again, but the Albanian people have never been intimidated by the impossible. Even as it suffered under a brutal occupation, Albania became one of the handful of places in Europe in World War II that sheltered Jews from from their own country as well as from other lands, thereby saving them from certain death at the hands of the Nazis. It takes great bravery to defend oneself and one's family against seemingly overwhelming force, but even more to act on behalf of one's countrymen and other families. To shelter complete strangers at such a terrible risk? Imagine the courage that it took, the compassion and the humanity that it took. And that is virtually unheard of. And it places the Albanian people in a very rare category indeed. And this little-known story of courage and compassion has never received the broader recognition that it deserves, which is why today's event is so welcome and so important. And that is why I am honored and privileged to be here today to celebrate with you the endurance of the remarkable people and the example that you have set for the world. But Albania's struggle is not yet over. For the partitions of its land and people continue to have deadly consequences for the region, including Kosovo. She will need allies to overcome the enormous obstacles that she confronts. And that is why I will continue to work in Congress to strengthen the U.S. alliance with Albania and to ensure that the Albanian people will never again face the world alone. For I am proud to call myself a friend of this heroic people. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you. Thank you, Joe and Shirley.
We are very fortunate to have with us a representative of the Israeli government, Ambassador Baruch Binah, the Deputy Chief of Mission of the State of Israel to the United States. We are going to ask him to please come up and deliver greetings.
Thank you, Rabbi, and thank you all for coming here today, and thank you also for inviting me to bring, on behalf of the government and the people of the State of Israel, our own greetings on this tremendous day of 100 years of Albanian independence, and to commemorate also the unique and exceptional role of Albania and the Albanian people during our hardest time, or the hardest times in our history. It was proven then, and it is proven today, that Jews and Muslims could be friends, that Israel could become friends with a Muslim country. We look forward to continued relations between Israel and Albania. Only recently we have opened an embassy in Tirana. There is an embassy in Tel Aviv. Of course, we would hope all embassies to be in Jerusalem one day. But we look forward to these relations. We're both Mediterranean countries. We share a tradition and we share aspirations for the future. And indeed, it's a great honor to be here today. And I have to say, I looked into the history of our nations, and I've heard it said already several times over this luncheon that Albania is the only country of occupied Europe during World War II that ended up with more Jews than it started with. And this is a very exceptional situation. There was only one other country, I think, that rescued all its Jews, and that is Denmark, of which I am happy to announce that I'm going to be the next ambassador of Israel to Denmark as of this coming summer. So I didn't mean it quite that way. Just that there are occasions in which a nation rises to the challenge. Denmark did it, Albania did it. Not many did. Not many did. There were individuals, of course, righteous among the nations, on an individual basis. But here we see, in the case of Albania, a nation that is a righteous nation among other nations who are not so righteous. So I salute you on that day, and I congratulate you on behalf of the government and the people of the State of Israel. Thank you very much, and please do carry on with all your efforts and with your endeavors to maintain and to promote the good relations between the State of Israel and Albania. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Well, we have another very important person, the chairman of the Armed Services Committee of the House of Representatives, Buck McKeon from California. Why is he important to the Albanian people? Well, we made a visit to Chairman McKeon when he was in New York because we were concerned that we were hearing rumors that the United States was going to pull its troops out of Kosovo. Now, you know the problems we had in Kosovo. You know the Balkan Wars, the genocide in Bosnia. That would have happened in Kosovo had it not been for the congressional people that we lobbied to be sure that the United States would finally tell Mr. Milosevic, it's over. If you don't get out, the line in the sand drawn by President Bush, we're going to fulfill, and we're going to drop bombs on Serbia, which is what they did. But now we got to protect that. And we went to Chairman McKeon because we know, Shirley and I, the history of the Albanian people in the Balkans, that when you leave Europe to solve the problem, it becomes a bigger mess, and then the United States has to come in, as they did in Kosovo. So we went to his office. Shirley made a great presentation to him about how important it was to keep the U.S. troops there, to keep Camp Bondsteel in the hands of the U.S. Army, not in the hands of Turkey or some other country, and he has prevailed so far. So with that, I want to introduce Chairman Buck McKeon. Chairman.
Well, thank you very much, Joe.
Thank you.
Disappeared. Shirley. And thank you for inviting me to be here today to participate just a little bit in your celebration of Albanians' commitment to democracy and liberty and tolerance. I thank you for your history and for that tradition that you have of your independence and the things you've worked so hard for. Thank you for letting me a part of remembering your 100th anniversary of your democracy. We've been democracy just a little bit longer, but we're both infants in that, and we're still struggling with it, and it's something that we treasure. We treasure in the United States, you treasure in Albania, we treasure the relationship that we share. We're also here to recognize the remembrance, the sacrifices that Albanians made for protecting the Jewish people from the Holocaust during World War II, the sacrifices that you made to protect innocent men, women, and children from being rounded up by the Nazis. That took great courage, great sacrifice. Thank you for that. You're one of the first true melting pots in Europe, a place where Christians, Muslims, and Jews have lived together for centuries, proving that it could be done. It can be done. It just takes will, courage, and the desire to do so. During World War II, the Muslims and Christians took Jewish refugees into their homes in order to protect them, again, from the Nazis. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do to set an example for others around the world. I see some of my former colleagues here, Bill, Connie, some of my newer colleagues here, Chris, Dana. And some who are not going to be here with us in the future, but They've been great supporters of all that you represent here in Albania. Thank you again. Keep up your great commitments and your encouragement to live together in peace and in freedom. Thank you very much.
Thank you. God bless you. We'll see you in New York on December 7th. Where's Bob?
Is Congressman Dana Rohrabacher. Please give him an applause. Just 1 second, Dana. We need to say a few more things because Dana is always a visionary. He's willing to step out and say, if we're Americans, then we believe in human rights and liberty, and if we're going to believe in that, then we're going to make it a reality. He was on the ground floor when it was not popular to say, Slobodan Milosevic is another Hitler, and we are going to face another genocide. That's exactly what happened in Bosnia and Kosovo, and he said we should be arming the people there. They should be determining their future. They should be able to vote for their own freedom eventually at the ballot box. I want to tell you, we're going to be showing a short film, a very little clip of some of the magnificent statements and compelling statements he made on the House floor. But right now, I want to recognize him for doing something else. It wasn't necessarily easy to do it in this particular political climate at this time during an election cycle. We asked for a major resolution, and I am happy to report that Congressman Dana Rohrabacher and Congressman Gerald Nadler introduced on November 15th in the House Committee on Foreign Affairs House Res 812, recognizing Albania on the occasion of its 100th year anniversary and commending Albanians around the world for the saving role they played during the Holocaust. Telling that history, and now Ileana Ros-Lehtinen, compelled by that, said, I will get the support in the committee. I will bring this resolution to the House floor, and it will be passed. Please, please, give him congratulations. And a very important part of that resolution is something very, very new, because it shows that it wasn't only Albanians inside of Albania who saved Jews during the Holocaust, but Albanians in Kosovo. It tells that story. We'll be hearing more about that today. Dana, welcome.
Yes. I just spoke to Dana, and he's going to forbear until we show a 3-minute clip. If you want to see someone in action on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, watch this. Eat, but just keep it quiet. We're going to move this along nicely.
Mr. Rohrabacher.
Let me thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank Mr. Lantos for the leadership that you two have provided on this issue. It's time to get on with it. It's time to get on with it. We've wasted so much time while the lives of these people just go on and on. The young people in Kosovo feel helpless, and unless we move and act to recognize that they have the rights as everyone else to control their own destiny through the ballot box, they're going to be just as angry as Americans would be in the same situation. We shouldn't permit the rights of our young people ever to be violated such, and we should consider the people of Kosovo just as on an equal level with our own people. It's time to get on with this job, give them their rights, give them the right to vote and control their own country, and to have a democratically elected government. This administration is serious about promoting democracy, which we hear from the president all the time, can start with Kosovo, and it's a great place to start because we can do it.
Gentleman's time.
Thank you very much, and I join my colleagues in congratulating the administration at long last, determining that it's time to do something. My first reaction is, you're late. But that set aside, it's time to get on with it, as I mentioned in my opening statement, and I'm very pleased that this administration has decided, yes, let's get on with this and try to find a solution. The solution to me seems very easy, and I don't know why we have to set up this convoluted process of having a United Nations advisor down there. We have senior UN diplomat determine if the final status talks are ready, and then as senior European negotiator, what's to negotiate? What's to determine? The people of Kosovo have a right to determine their own future through the ballot box, just as every other group of people in this world. There's nothing to determine there. Either we are Americans, and we believe that, or we don't. The president talks about democracy as being an important part of his administration, and a very important goal, important value that we're putting forward, a priority value, let's say. Well, this is the way to prove it, right here. Why should we be taking into consideration what the Serbs and the Montenegrins want to do about the political future of the Kosovars? It's the Kosovars who are the ones who need to determine that. If we believe in democracy, it's time to let the people of Kosovo have an election, determine their own leaders.
I'll summarize my testimony totally. Vital interest not to create a seeming contradiction between calling for free and fair elections and democracy in Iraq and Ukraine on the one hand, and then denying the democratic process in Kosovo, something about which Congressman Rohrabacher has spoken so eloquently. It's in the vital interest of the United States to have a progressive Muslim Albanian majority in the heart of Europe. It's in the vital interest of the United States that Albanians are the most pro-American, pro-Western ethnic group in Southeast Europe and maybe in all of Europe. When America was attacked on 9/11, many countries danced in the streets while Kosovar Albanians lit candles, had vigils, and said, "We are with you." It's in the vital interest of the United States to provide genuine support for the democratization of all societies emerging from communism and ultranationalism. And this means that it must come to grips with the fact that U.S. policy in the past 15 years has failed to denazify and democratize Serbia. It's not enough simply to pick up Mladic and Karadzic to come to grips with the situation in which Serbia continues to be a quasi-mafia state that destabilizes its neighbors, and Serbs are being hurt by that.
Thank you very much, Mrs. DioGuardi. Mr. Rohrabacher.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Joe and Shirley DioGuardi for the hard work that they put out on this issue and this cause over the years. And it's been vitally important that a group of people in desperate situations in another part of the world were given direction on how to state their case and how to make sure people understood what was going on through the very complicated democratic process in the United States. So I think Joe and Shirley have done a tremendous job in making sure that we got the picture of what was going on instead of a blurred picture of what was going on there. I'd like to make one note for the record, Mr. Chairman, that is that when we do talk about the United Nations, the administration seems to believe that the United Nations now should play a role in this process, and we're going to have United Nations representatives there as some negotiators or reconciliators, democratic reconciliators. I just wonder, Mr. Chairman, if those United Nations representatives will be from democratic countries or not. And I'm sorry I didn't have our representative here for the administration. It seems that perhaps a large number of countries in the United Nations are not democratic, and sending perhaps people from China or North Korea or any of these other great countries, Burma, to come to help the Kosovars negotiate for democracy wouldn't really be of great service. And that's why the United States has to make decisions rather than leaving it up to the United Nations. Because in the United Nations, there is a tremendous, let's say, influence of people who do not believe in democracy and the value of liberty and justice.
Yeah. Carrying on the footsteps of Congressman Lantos in the House International Relations Committee. We have another fighter like Congressman Lantos.
No, please, I thank you. Here in Washington, you learned lots of basic fundamental rules of human nature, and also I've been a senior member of the Science Committee for 24 years now. I've been in the Science Committee, and you learn some of the actual relationships between physical science and more about human science. And one of the things that you learn in politics right away is the natural makeup of certain liquids. And we have learned, for example, that the fastest drying liquid known to human beings are tears of gratitude. And let us say that today we are demonstrating the gratitude we have that so frequently or infrequently is expressed towards Joe and Shirley and others who've done such a terrific job for this cause, and to get the word out about how important it is to recognize and to be grateful for the for the gifts that we've been given by individuals like Joe and Shirley, and by groups of people like the Albanian people, the gift that they gave to their neighbors and loved ones, and to strangers whose lives were in jeopardy a half a century or over a half a century ago. So we remember this incredible act, and we're grateful to the Albanian people for this act. I am proud to stand with you in this act of thanks to the Albanian people for showing the world a better way, and showing the world that human beings in times of crisis can stand with courage and make a huge difference. Thank you, Albanian Americans. Thank you, Albania. I've noticed that happiness and gratitude, by the way, another aspect is that happiness and gratitude so often go together. People who aren't grateful for what they've got generally are not happy people. And I would just like to say that I am a very happy person, because my eyes have been open to the wonderful contributions that so many groups in our country have made. I'd like to first ask, how many of you are U.S. citizens or Americans? Could you raise your hand? All right. Now, I want to note this. The United States, U.S., it's us. That's all it is. It's us. And we come from every place in the world. We come from every country, every ethnic group, every religion is us. And we've come here to show the world that there's a better way. That's what America is all about. That's what you're all about. That's what I'm all about. But it's up to us to make sure that we do what those brave people who came here many years ago, and those recent immigrants who've come here, they've all come here to live in freedom and to show the world that there is a better way. Because without us, United States, standing up for those principles, there is no hope. There is no hope for people who are under a tyrant's grip right now as he grips their throat. There's no one to call to help except the United States. If we do not stand tall for those principles of justice and of liberty, there is no hope, not just for our children's future, but for no one's children's future on this planet. God gave us a terrible responsibility. We have to prove to the world we believe in those principles, and it's tough, and it's complicated. And the Joe and Shirley's dedicate their whole life to this. It's up to us to dedicate at least that time that we can afford to make sure that America stays on this track. I am proud to stand with you. God bless you.
It gives me a great honor to introduce Senator Schumer. I first met Senator Schumer 20-odd years ago in a debate in Long Island, when he was Congressman Schumer, he represented Michael Dukakis and I represented Senior Bush. Senator Schumer has been a great friend of the Albanian people, and he is, as well as the greatest spokesman of our time for the Jewish people. And we as Americans, Jewish Americans, and Albanian Americans have no better friend, and I'm proud to introduce Senator Charles Schumer.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. And it's great to be here, and I appreciate the honor of being here. I'm sorry I'll have to be brief. It's a busy day. I want to thank Ron Rettner, as well as Karen, for sponsoring this great lunch and being co-chair. I want to thank, of course, Rabbi Stone, who's done a great job in the Jewish community. And at the top of the list are the people who really helped forge the friendship between me and the Albanian community, and that is Joe and Shirley DioGuardi. Thank you for your great work. Annette Lantos has been a friend of mine. Her late husband and I came to Congress in 1980, and Rabbi Potasnik is from Brooklyn. So what more can I say? It is great to be here, and I'm here for two reasons. First, in general, I believe in New York and believe in America. And one of the great newer communities in New York is the Albanian community. And you are fulfilling the American dream. Many of you came here without much money, and you worked hard. Many of you started off, for whatever reason, working in buildings. People started as doormen and janitors, but they worked so hard that they came to own small buildings and more buildings and larger buildings. And one of the linchpins of the real estate industry in New York, as well as the people who bring back so many communities in the Bronx and in Queens and in Westchester. We are going to welcome you to Brooklyn. We don't have enough Albanians in Brooklyn, where I live, but is the Albanian community. So as a New Yorker and as an American, I am so proud of this growing and burgeoning community. And we say to those in Albania, come to New York, come to America. The more Albanians there are in America, the better America is. The second reason I'm here is the wonderful history between the Jewish people and the Albanian people. Let me just say, yesterday I introduced Senate Resolution 601 celebrating 100 years of Albanian independence. The resolution commends the people of Albania and Kosovo for protecting and saving the lives of Jews who lived in Albania or crossed her borders seeking asylum during the Holocaust. You saved, because of your generosity and your ecumenical spirit, thousands of lives. At the end of World War II, listen to this, at the end of World War II, where 6 million Jews were brutally exterminated, Albania was the only country in Europe with more Jews than when the war began. And that speaks to your hospitality and your bravery and your humanity. And at great risk to many Albanians and the safety of their homes and their country, the Albanian people protected the Jewish people and proved to be a rare land in Europe where religious prejudice would not be tolerated. Albanians came from three faiths, but Muslims and Christians alike stood by their Jewish brothers and offered a safe haven for a continent's worth of refugees. And so today, as we celebrate 100 years of independence, Albania is even stronger and more diverse and remains America's trusted ally. 100 years of celebration certainly calls for more. And so I say, here's to 100 more years of great Albanian independence and growth. To all of you, Gezuar. Did I say it right? Okay, thank you.
One of the things that you'll notice in the brochure that we put together is a letter from Avner Shalev, who is the chair of Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem. And I was struck from the beginning, and he mentions it in it to a certain extent, when we were visiting in 2007, when Yad Vashem recognized the Albanian role for the first time. He pointed out something of tremendous importance. He said, look at who was involved in the final solution, so-called, the extermination of European Jewry. These were products of the German Enlightenment. These were people with doctorates, PhDs. These were the people that murdered 6 million Jews. And then look at the Albanians. Who were they? Many of them without any education. What did they represent? The finest element of humanity, of morality. If you look at some of the books that exist today about who the rescuers are and what they're about, you'll see that it's about two things: empathy and courage. The willingness to take a risk, even at the expense of oneself. And in the Albanian experience, it's unique because it applies to everyone. It is the cultural essence that we are recognizing today. It's the essence that we all need if we are going to go into this next generation, make sure there's never another Holocaust, make sure that we're doing something to stop genocide, make sure that the United States, as Congressman Rohrabacher so eloquently put, is one of the greatest living experiments for democracy. And the people that represent this today are in this room. There's a certain special group that we need to recognize, and we'd be wrong. We will also recognize our family, by the way, which sorry, we haven't done that yet, and other people. But it's very, very important, as Joe said. It's not just Joe and Shirley. There are several people on our board in this room today, not all of them. There are about 40 from around the United States, but some came around the United States. And I want to, please withhold your applause, but I would like each one to come up and please stand in front so that you can get proper recognition. And we would like to put this out to the world in all of the filming that we're doing. Many of these people spent 25 years working with the Albanian American Civic League. I'm going to do this in alphabetical order. The first is Dr. Gez Agoli. He's a naturopathic physician. Where is Dr. Agoli here? Please, Gez, come up. And a medical doctor from Atlanta. He runs the Progressive Medical Group, and he's here with his wife, Donna, and his daughter, Morgan, and his son, Jordan, today. From Atlanta. Aga Malichkai, and originally from Albania. Aga Malichkai, who you're going to be hearing about more today, is from Kosovo, a graduate of Zagreb University. He runs a major, the Kosovo Travel Agency in New York, and he's here with many members of his family. His father is one of the rescuers in Kosovo, and he'll be talking about that. It's part of our resolution, his story. Also you can introduce Agim, your family, because he has some from around the world. We have Zef Balai, who's also here today with his wife, Lena. He escaped from Albania with his parents as a child. And he and his wife are business people who run a major real estate development and managing firm in the Bronx in Westchester County. We have Faton Bislimi, who is, I know, doing a lot of work. I hope he's here right now. Born in Kosovo, escaped to the United States in high school, graduated from Texas Lutheran University, then Harvard University, is now doing a PhD in international relations at the University of Alberta in Edmonton. We have Arslan Cekai, born in Montenegro, escaped to the United States. He's a multifaceted person, an artist, a pilot, a real estate entrepreneur. He's here with his wife, Rosetta. They're both accomplished business people. Where are you, Arslan? There, and his son Kaplan is here too. We have Zef Dedabane. Please hold your applause till the end. We have Zef Dedabane, born in Albania, the owner of a large restaurant in Michigan and a central person in the Albanian Roman Catholic Church there. We have George DioGuardi. Please come up. Zeph, come on up. I guess he's blocked from moving. We have George DioGuardi, born in Montenegro. He's the owner of a well-known restaurant on Arthur Avenue. This is just the board coming up, not the family. If you don't mind, it's just the board right now. Sorry. We'll take pictures later with everybody. George is the rector of a school. Come on, over. Teaching the Albanian language and culture to Albanian American children. We have Adam Dukai. Where is Adam? Born in Montenegro, an engineer coming all the way from Huntington, California, specializing in alternative energy. Adam, are you with us?
Coming.
Okay. We have Fero Jambalai, born in Montenegro, owner of Champion Marble, in Marlborough, New Jersey. He has a construction company specializing in marble. We have Sammy Januzzi. Is Sammy here right now with us? Great. Born in Albania. Born in Macedonia. He's a naturopathic doctor with a successful practice in Atlantic City. His nephew is here, I know, Michael Januzzi. They've served on the board for many years. Gazman Lita, born in Albania, the owner of Le Jardin, a very, very fabulous restaurant in Hudson, overlooking the Hudson River in New Jersey. Is he here? With his wife, Spresha, she's here today, and with cousin Ilir Meta and his wife, Aisha. We have Luan Mazreku, born in Kosovo. With the help of Albanians, he actually was able to leave after the war. He has a bachelor's degree from Drury University, a master's degree from Missouri State University, and he is currently a grant specialist for a nonprofit organization in Chicago, and he is our key translator. We have Rafat Mehmeti, born in Macedonia, from Staten Island now, and a successful restaurateur in Brooklyn with his wife here, also Luria today. Come on up, everybody. We have Maris Nutsulai, born in Montenegro, successful restaurateur in Belleville, Michigan, and a long history of charitable giving, and somebody who literally had to escape with his own life. Many, many people here had to escape under communism. We have Hafiz Shala, the director of a construction company at the time he was in Kosovo, and a leader of the opposition to the Serbian occupation. His children are here today, Luan, who is risk management director at Barclays, and Lindita, who is an information technology expert. And we have Dervish Shehu, born in Macedonia with a degree in physics, and he works in real estate management today. He's here with his wife, Spresa, and children, Elita, Ardita, and Alban. Please give everyone a resounding praise and applause. Yeah, we're going to say, I'll say it and you talk about it. And we have a gift for everyone on the board, which is a very, 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 very special book. And it's inscribed that we'd like you to pick up, and it's over there, and Joe's going to mention briefly what it's about. It's being released for the first time in the world, and it's being done right here, and you're the first recipients. Thank you. We can't thank you all enough for everything. We are a family together, and we will be seeing each other.
Stand there for a minute. Don't move, please. Gentlemen, just a minute. These gentlemen didn't get off that easily because this is a very expensive event, and they are financial sponsors as well. So thank you for all you did to make this possible, besides the Rettner family and other and by the way, our Italian friends also, we have,
we'll talk about next.
Yeah, we'll introduce them. They're also, but let me say this. This book was flown in from Albania just to be here. It was produced last week, and this book has not been in English for over 600 years. It was in Latin for 550 years. It was only translated into Albanian in 1962 on the 50th anniversary. But when you read this, and we have this inscribed to each member of the board and other dignitaries here, you will really see the heroism of the Albanian people after the great general George Kastriati died in 1468. This is the siege of Skodra, how 10,000 Albanians withstood 250,000 Ottoman Turks. They have to make a movie of it. When you read it, you can't put it down. But it's a gift for you. As you go there, pick it up. It's on the table. Each one of you, it has your name on it. So thank you so much for all you've done. Right. Thank you. Thank you.
While the board receives their book, I'd like to call up Bob Levy, the newly elected chairman of the National Council of Young Israel, representing hundreds of synagogues across the United States.
Okay, what we're going to do for the sake of timing, Annette, I'm going to give you this tape because we have several important hearings where Tom was instrumental in pushing the State Department to do the right thing. This hearing was the first one done with the Senate and the House, was 6 hours long, 1990, the first time the issue of Kosovo was brought to the United States Congress. It was an incredible hearing. And here he is, chairman of the founder and co-chairman of the Congressional Human Rights Caucus, with many senators, many House members. All right, Annette? Well, she's really moved by seeing this, I know, and let's give Annette a hand here.
By the way, we should let you know that Annette is the president of the Lantos Foundation. She's been carrying on the work, and a lot of people don't realize the caucus on human rights, in the Congress. She was as much a factor in that, in its development and evolution as Tom was. So please, we recognize you and we thank you. She's also was rescued by Raoul Wallenberg. She is one of the people who was rescued.
I didn't quite expect this, and I still haven't gotten over losing my husband, so you have to excuse me. But anyway, I'm honored to join you today in commemorating the 100th anniversary of Albanian independence, as well as remembering the remarkable story of the Albanian courage and decency during the Holocaust, of which, as some of you may know, my husband was the only survivor of the Holocaust ever elected to the Congress of the United States, and we are both, of course, survivors. So this is particularly important for us. Albania is notable and unique among all the nations of Europe, both in saving every Albanian citizen of Jewish heritage and offering refuge to thousands more who fled the Nazi death machine and found safety in this corner of Europe. It is truly a story that should and must be much more widely acknowledged. And I want to express my appreciation to Shirley and Joe, who has done more than anyone except perhaps her husband Joe, to ensure that this inspiring piece of history is known. In our day, stories of cooperation and rescue among Muslims and Jews are few and far in between. But during the years that Albania was occupied by the German Nazi forces, such courageous rescues by both Muslims and Christians happened throughout the Albanian nation. All parts of Albanian society participated in this noble effort, from the peasantry to the intellectual elite. And in doing so, they were living out the age-old Albanian code of honor, known as Besa, I hope I pronounced it right, which commands both religious tolerance and providing shelter and sustenance and protection to all guests who come seeking it. Remarkably, the story of Albania's heroic Holocaust rescue was repressed and buried during the nearly 50 years of brutal Stalinist dictatorship. And were it not for the leadership of Congressman Joe DioGuardi and my late husband, Congressman Lantos, it might never have come to light. In 1990, these two trailblazing freedom fighters traveled to Albania, the first US officials to visit the country in half a century. As you know, my late husband was the only Holocaust survivor ever to serve in Congress, and Hoxha's successor, the dictator Ramiz Alia, to burnish his standing with the US government by presenting my husband with a never-before-seen archives containing letters, photographs, newspapers, and clippings documenting the story of Albanians who have saved Jews during the Second World War. Congressman DioGuardi sent these precious files to Yad Vashem in Israel, where they were carefully researched and authenticated. And in 1995, Tom joined forces with our dear friend, Congressman Ben Gilman, to work with the U.S. Memorial Holocaust Museum to successfully have Albania added to the Righteous Among the Nations section in the museum. I would like to say a word about a man we all know and admire, Joe DioGuardi, and his wonderful wife, Shirley. They have been something of George Washington to the Albanian American community. For over 3 decades, Joe has helped them to find their voice and to channel their political passion to work for Albanian freedom and democracy. Tom loved and admired Joe, and although they came from different political parties, they often stood shoulder to shoulder in standing up to expose the evils of communism and to work to advance democracy and human rights for the repressed people around the world. It is a real pleasure for me to be here with him and with Shirley today, and I would like to ask all of you to join me in a round of applause for Joe and Shirley for their tremendous service to the cause of freedom and justice. Tom would often close his speeches by reminding his audience, the veneer of civilization is paper thin. We are its guardians, and we can never rest. Today, we are proudly and reverently remembering those who took their responsibility to guard civilization as a profound moral duty and were prepared to sacrifice everything, including their lives, to fulfill this obligation. May we take seriously our responsibility to tell their story and draw inspiration from their example. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we're going to give you that tape to put in the archives before you leave. God bless you. Okay. You want to take a picture? Yeah.
Rabbi Levi Shem Tov, Executive Vice President of the American Friends of Lubavitch, is highly regarded for his inspiring leadership as a member of the rabbinate, representing his more than 4,000 colleagues of the International Chabad Lubavitch movement, which serves millions of Jews in 48 states and over 80 countries worldwide. Rabbi Shem Tov enjoys good relationships with our nation's top communal and governmental leaders, who welcome his keen insight as they deal with some of the most complex domestic and international issues facing the Jewish community and American society generally. Rabbi Shem Tov is also the founder of the Capital Jewish Forum, a bipartisan group right here on Capitol Hill, which serves to create and enhance a sense of Jewish identity and community among Jewish congressional staffers and members of Congress. I like to informally refer to Rabbi Shem Tov as the ambassador of the Jewish people, as his headquarters is located at Embassy Row, and every problem confronting the Jewish community globally and locally manages to capture the attention of the rabbi, so we're very grateful for his presence here today. Thank you, Rabbi Shem Tov.
Thank you, Ezra. It's always wonderful to be with such wonderful people, the Chairman of the Conference of Presidents, members of Congress, and rabbis, and diplomats, people from all over the world. And it's an honor to be in a room that honors a society that rose to the highest level of decency during a time when the worst viciousness in our history was perpetrated. I'm happy that Chairwoman Ileana Ros-Lehtinen came to speak today, because Ileana, as you head out, I want to tell you that you mirror a biblical figure. As you know, Ileana has a very strong Jewish heritage, and our ancestor Jacob, we are told that when he left Beersheba, went to Haran in biblical times. So Rashi, the classic commentator, doesn't understand why we have to know his departure point if the main thing is where he was going. And he answers that when a great figure, a very spiritual or great sagely figure, a sacred figure leaves a place, then their majesty and their glory go with them. And therefore the place where they leave feels the void. So Ileana is stepping down after this Congress as chairwoman of the House International Relations Committee, a reign during which anyone approaching the Hill knew two things. Don't say anything nice about Castro, don't say anything bad about Israel. And so Ileana might be leaving the chairmanship of that committee, but she's still here, a force of nature, and I just want to wish you all the blessings going forward. Now, the reason you're fortunate among the speakers is I have a 2 o'clock flight from Reagan Airport, so this is going to be very, very brief. But the 40s, the late 30s and the 40s were a time when humanity was tested to its core. People were being slaughtered just for who they were, and as Elie Wiesel once said, he spent many years trying to figure out whether the Nazis had a valid reason to hate him. Maybe there was something wrong that he just didn't want to face up to. He says, I came to the conclusion they couldn't possibly have a valid reason to hate me because they hated me before I was even born, which meant it was a visceral hatred. It was a terrible trait. And in that time, there were people that rose to the level of heroic valor, which was only recognized many, many years later. But I was just in a meeting with a senator who said that Albania may be one of those places that had more Jews after World War II than before, because the people of Albania saw a chance to rise above and beyond the call of duty, which would be to just protect yourself and not participate in the horror, and save so many people from it. So that is a reason even more compelling than being asked by Ezra Friedlander, because no one says no to Ezra Friedlander. If you say no, then Mrs. Friedlander will make you say yes. So you have to come here. But to salute such people who really were the best that God can expect, which is to take their needs and set them aside, and even their safety and set that aside, to protect the basic human dignity of people who are in need. I think that that's something everybody should want to participate in and attend to, and that's why it's a pleasure to be here. I just want to finish with one small point. Albania is a small country, and look at what we're recognizing today, how it helped shield people from a great horror of that time. We, the great nation of America, are living in an age when there's another threat to the Jewish people, and one that is so difficult to deal with, I'm not sure which one is more of a struggle, because in the late 30s and early 40s, people hadn't seen genocide before on such a scale, so they didn't realize what was happening until maybe it was too late to do something about it. But in today's threat, and of course I referred to Iran, we see a hegemony that's forming and growing, and we in America are strong enough to do something about it, but maybe we're being a little bit too patient and we're not listening to the lessons of history. And those who don't listen to the lessons of history are doomed to repeat it. So I just take my lesson again from the Torah. Jacob had to face his brother Esau, who was evil and tried to destroy him. Of course he prayed. Of course he had gifts to give him to make peace, but he also prepared with strength. So today we salute the United States of America, we salute the courage of the Albanian people, and we salute the eternity of the nation of the Jewish people. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Rabbi. Now, we have Rabbi Joseph Potasnik. He's the Executive Vice President of the New York Board of Rabbis. You may sometimes listen to him on radio, very outspoken. I've gotten to know him. He's someone who's aggressive, he's an advocate, understands the Albanian people. Rabbi, thank you so much for being with us today. You honor us with your presence. Say a few words, yes.
Hey, how are you? Thank you, Mrs. Lantos, Joe and Shirley. Ladies and gentlemen, I received an interesting call from Ezra Friedlander. He said to me, Rabbi, do you believe in free speech? I said, Ezra, I certainly do. He said, good, I want you to come and give one. Thank you so much. Let me say to all of you here that I'm a child of Holocaust survivors. So, firstly, I come to say thank you. Secondly, I want you to know that when my parents arrived in Lynn, Massachusetts after the war, having lost 5 children, the first group to reach out to them were the nuns of St. Mary's Church. Now, they did that because of their moral code. They didn't do it because
Catholic, Jewish. They did it because it was the right thing to do. You reached out to Jews because of Bessa, because it was the right thing to do. So yes, we talk about different faiths, but ultimately it is the decent of all faiths who must stand together against the indecent of all faiths. So when you ask someone after the war, why didn't you do anything? The person's response often was, well, what can I do? When you ask someone from Albania, why did you do what you did during the war? The response was, what else could I do? Big difference. So thank you so much. We come here today, and very often we as Jews say, what? Am Yisrael Chai, may Israel live. I'd like to add to that today, Am Albania Chai, may you also live together with us. Thank you so much.
We have with us Professor Richard Stone. There is a fabulous organization called the Conference of Presidents of Jewish Organizations of America. I think there's probably over 300. Close enough? Okay. All right. Well, he's going to be speaking, but I wanted you to see a clip of me and Malcolm Hoenlein, who is the, I guess he's the executive the chief operating officer of the conference. Professor Richard Stone is the chairman of the board. But it so happens that Malcolm came with me to Israel in 1985 when he was the head of the Jewish Community Relations Council, I believe it was, in New York, and we were there, and it was right in front of Yad Vashem.
Malcolm, it's good to be here in Israel with you. I was here 18 months ago on not a trip dealing with my responsibilities now as a congressman, but as a citizen here to see what I can do in some small way to help Israel deal with its strategic plan for the future. Being here at the Yad Vashem, I guess, is a good place to focus on the importance of Israel to the world, not only to the Jewish community in the United States or where I am in Westchester County, but to the fact that a very important part of Israel is the fact that we have here a memorial of man's inhumanity to man, at least here at the Yad Vashem, that in history there were times that we had to reflect on how bad a man can be to man.
I think you're quite right that this is a fitting starting point. I think to understand Israel, to understand the commitment of Jews around the world and of non-Jews who understand what happened 40 years ago, the silence of the world in the face of the destruction of 6 million Jews and millions of others, seeing the depths of depravity to which human beings could sink in their hatred of others. I think understanding the pledge that every Jew takes in one way or another of never again, never allowing what happened 40 years ago to happen again to any people. And Yad Vashem stands as a memorial not only to the 6 million Jews who died, but as a constant reminder to all people and as a living reminder. And when one goes through there, one can relate to it and see himself or his own family, God forbid, going through the same thing.
Thank you, Malcolm Hoenlein. Now for Professor Richard Stone. And by the way, there's been almost too much mention of Joe and Shirley here. Sure, this is a labor of love for us, but we have a board, and 90% of them are in this room, and they'll be introduced very shortly, okay? But right now, Richard Stone.
Thank you, Joe. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say first, I'm very used to being upstaged by Malcolm Hoenlein, but not when he's not even in the room, and not when he's 25 years younger. And so to slightly compensate for that, I'm simply going to say Joe looks the same 25 years later. Malcolm looks very different, I assure you. The organization that I am chairman of, and Malcolm Hoenlein is the extremely well-known and outstanding CEO, the Conference of Presidents of Major American Organizations, is the umbrella that represents 51 major American Jewish organizations and really represents the organized American Jewish community in international affairs and relations with most of the world. I'm here today solely, come from New York, we'll go back to New York, I'm here solely to attend this occasion. And I'm telling you this not to ask for your gratitude, but simply to give you an idea of how significant I think this celebration of the 100th anniversary of the independence of Albania is, and to bring you greetings from the entire American organized Jewish community. I think the reasons why I and our community attach so much importance to this should be clear, and in many cases have been alluded to and described already. Let me put it in a slightly different light. The century during which Albania has been independent has been a century of drama and trauma conceivably unparalleled in thousands of years in Jewish history. First, it has been a century in which indescribable horror has been experienced, and everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about. If not horror that of a type we never knew before in Jewish history, certainly the scope was unique. 40% of our world population and a higher percentage of our religious heritage was destroyed in Europe in World War II. We have, as you well know, looked for the perpetrators and continue, as they go into their late 90s, to look for the perpetrators of this horror, not in order to have vengeance, but in order to do everything we can to publicize what happened and to make sure that it won't happen again to Jews, to Albanians, or to anyone else. But just as important as our search for perpetrators is the search that we have assiduously conducted for those righteous people among the nations who rose above human expectation, risked themselves, put themselves out, sacrificed themselves, and acted with extraordinary humanity to save whatever of our people they could in their midst. And in that regard, we are so grateful to know, to have had uncovered the extraordinary behavior of the Albanian people and of Albania toward its Jewish population and to its neighboring Jewish population. The fact that Albania has been called a righteous nation by Yad Vashem, that 69 individual Albanians have been named as righteous people of the world in an official recognized capacity is itself a reason to come here no matter how tired I may happen to be. And the fact that the Jewish population of Albania increased during World War II is something that the American Jewish community will forever remember, and so will world Jewry. Unbelievably, the Jews now have their own state after 2,000 years. It's a state whose Declaration of Independence is now in its 65th year, might catch up on Albania someday. It's a democratic state that is Jewish in character, democratic, and where high tech is changing and improving the world with what I think I can modestly call Jewish talent and Jewish initiative. And it is, more important than anything else, a refuge for all Jews, so that with all the difficulties we face, what happened to us 60 years ago simply will not happen again. Once again, we enormously appreciate Albania to be one of the real lights in the world of understanding of the accomplishment of the State of Israel, of understanding the decent character, and of allying with the State of Israel in a very, very hostile world. First, the government of Albania repeatedly speaks out against terrorism and repeatedly calls the Iranian president, by analogy, properly to Nazis. Next, the Albanian government, and your prime minister in particular, have repeatedly made it clear that though we all want a just settlement of the Israel-Palestinian conflict, the way to that settlement is bilateral negotiations, not unilateral declarations brought to the United Nations. And so Where does it come from? You have shown us hospitality, heroism, sacrifice, tolerance, freedom. In spite of the fact that, as has been mentioned here, Albania has been subjected for hundreds of years under Ottoman rule, for a nasty few years under Nazi rule, and then for more than half a century under indescribable and really unique dictatorship of the communist regime. Where did this incredible show of humanity survive in a people so beleaguered? Your inner soul proved itself, and I've been reading, and I've been helped by my host today, I've been reading about something called Resa. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but it is apparently a concept that needs more and more study and understanding because it is rich in ethical tradition and in spiritual tradition, and it is apparently a good description of the soul of the Albanian people. We are also a people who have been beleaguered like you. We are a tiny fraction of the world's population, and the analogies between us have been stated, and I think they are seriously obvious. So it's a special privilege to be here, to be associated with the great Tom Lantos, may he rest in peace and may his memory be blessed, to be with Joe and Shirley DioGuardi, who have done so much to bring these important facts to bear. We are from the Near East region and the Balkan region are probably two of the most difficult and complex in the world. I want to thank the Rettners for chairing this today. We'll continue in friendship. I thank you for that friendship, and we will thrive together and overcome evil in the world.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Ron.
I'd like to call up Bob Levy, the chairman, the newly elected chairman of the National Council of Young Israel, representing hundreds of synagogues across the United States with hundreds of thousands of members, to please deliver brief greetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ezra. And I do want to thank the Congressman DioGuardi and Mrs. DioGuardi for the tremendous work they did to put this together and to bring the struggle of the Albanian people and actually the tremendous efforts of the Albanian people to the foreground. On behalf of the National Council of Young Israel, which represents 25,000 member families from around the United States, we want to offer the collective congratulations to everyone in this room on your 100th anniversary from liberation of Ottoman domination. I might also say that 1912 was also the centennial. It was also the year of the founding of the National Council of Young Israel. So we also celebrate our centennial this year. There's a term in Hebrew known, and it's a phrase known, Hakarat HaTov, which literally means recognizing good. And the purpose, I think, of this event is to recognize the absolute good and virtue of the Albanian people during a very, very difficult time in our planet's history. There was self-sacrifice demonstrated by the Albanian people and its government. There was selfless heroism while Europe was cast in a pitch-dark pallor. The murderous gloom, however, of Europe did not snuff out the humanity that existed in the country of Albania. And I think to fully appreciate what was going on in Europe and in your small part of the world is to understand what was going on here in the halls of Congress in the United States at that very same period of time, because only when we look at it in context can we truly appreciate the significance of the efforts that you actually put forth at that troubling period of time. In the 1920s, at the time that Nazism was still in its embryonic state in Germany, There was legislation that was passed in Congress, known as the Immigration Act of 1924, which was promoted by Senator David Reed of Pennsylvania. And he probably had his office in this very building. And what that did was that significantly restricted immigration into the United States to such a level that left countless, countless Jews in harm's way in Europe. Only 9 senators who had their offices in this building or in the next building in Dirksen, actually Dirksen wasn't built yet, so it would have been in this building. Only 9 senators cast their vote against that restrictive immigration bill. In 1939, there was something known as the Wayne Rogers Immigration Bill, which would have permitted 20,000 Jewish children under the age of 14 to come to these shores. That was defeated. So I think to fully appreciate what Albania did, one had to look at our country and what we did not do. So thank you, Albanians, for what you did. My father and grandparents emigrated from Germany in 1938. They were lucky enough to have a relative here who was able to secure them visas. I think of what would have happened had they not been able to emigrate there, to here. Would they have been able to get in Albania? I don't know. What would they have done? Where would they have gone? Where would I be? I don't know. Israel did not exist at that point in time. So only because that there was safe haven in a place like Albania were countless Jewish souls saved. There's a saying in the Talmud, and it's almost cliche, and I think you've probably heard it. If you saw the movie Schindler's List, you saw it, you probably heard it there. The Talmud says, those who destroy a single soul, it's as if you destroy the entire world. But the corollary to that also is whoever saves a single soul saves the entire world. Think of how many worlds Albanians saved in the 1930s and in the 1940s, and think of how many worlds you helped create and made sure that they are here today, the progeny of those souls. Indeed, Bessa, and I hope I pronounced that word right, an ancient yet eternal code of honor saved humanity. Only within the past 2 decades have we become privy to the depth of the heroism of your people. Though belatedly, on behalf of the National Council of Young Israel, let me humbly express my gratitude, my appreciation. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
As you heard from Agim, what an eloquent presentation, but one of the things he talked about was Bessa, and the wonderful thing in Albania was that Jews in Albania were not considered foreigners during the Holocaust. They were considered guests. And I'd like to ask Johanna Neumann from the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, who was one of the people who was rescued and who I mentioned earlier before, to come up and just make some brief greetings to the audience. Johanna. We don't have any at the base, but I think that would work.
Okay. Well, my heartfelt thanks to all the Albanian people. That goes without saying. I have spoken in many places to many different groups, children, adults, Albanian groups in Germany, you name it. And the one thing that I always have to say is, I end my speech always by saying our Talmud teaches that if you save one human life, it is as though you save a whole world. I'm the mother of 4 children, the grandmother of 14 children, and the great-grandmother of 9 with 3 more on the way. This would not have been the case if it hadn't been for the good Albanian people who saved us. This is not simply saying, saved us. We were not refugees in their eyes. We were guests. That's how we were treated. This is how they treated us. We had Muslim friends, we had some Christian friends. Muslim community took us with them to their mosque, invited us for their Ramadan, etc., etc. We were not ever made to feel that we were foreigners. And the big thing really is the sacrifice, the danger into which these Albanian friends put their lives cannot be estimated in today's world. If any German would have realized that Albanian families were hiding Jews in their home, the entire family would have been shot on the spot. You can trust me. I have seen a whole house with people in it being blown up by the Germans because one partisan was hidden in that house, let alone if they would have discovered that Jews were being hidden in anybody's home. So my thanks to the Albanian people is endless, and I love to talk about it because not enough is being said, not enough is known about it, and there were very few such courageous and wonderful people as the Albanian people. So I love to talk about it. Thank you very much.
You've heard that, thank you very much, Leka. You've heard, about the fact that we actually have two resolutions. It was only yesterday afternoon that I found out that Senator Schumer and Senator McKeon introduced a corresponding resolution in the Senate. This is very fabulous. And within that resolution, the story of the Reznicki family is documented, but also for the first time, and it's important, the story of the Lichkai family is documented. Because as you heard from Leka, Arifa Lichkai was one of the central people in the story. And I would like, of course, Agama Lichkai, his son, to tell that story. And it's very, very important that we fill the gap in the Holocaust literature and that we continue to reveal what Albanians did when others would not act.
I had a speech, but I'd like to speak with my emotions. I always prepare a speech and then I speak something else. Yes, it's like Joe DioGuardi. First, Albanians and Jews and Americans, we have what to celebrate, especially Albanians today, 100 years of our anniversary of independence of Albania. But we are here today also to celebrate a friendship between Albanian people, Jewish people, and American people. This friendship was created and built through history. And I have a personal story to tell today. We are honoring Albanians who helped Jewish people survive the Holocaust during the World War II, were 1943. This is a long time ago, but my feelings are like this is happening today. We are very, very proud that our father, Arifa Lichkai, was part of these people, Albanians from Kosovo, who did help Jews survive and pass to Albania safely. He was approached by his friend, grandfather of Leka Reznicki, to issue false IDs for the Jewish families who came to Deccan, and that's what he did. He risked his life and his job to do that. But he had two reasons for that, very big reasons. One is because he saw and he knew that Jews were persecuted just for being Jews. And he had a personal story because his father, when he was 4 years old, was killed and massacred by Yugoslav army in our village. And he saw his father not being murdered, but afterwards covered in blood. So this was a personal thing, and he was only killed because he was Albanian. The other reason is Albanians, they have a code of honor which we mentioned today, Besa. If somebody who is in need makes it to your village or your city, you are obliged to help that person, to save that person, and make everything possible, even risking your life, so that person doesn't get hurt. Otherwise, you would lose the honor and you will have no standing within the Albanian community afterwards if something happens to your guest. So these are very two good reasons that made him do what he did and risk his life. I am very proud of what our father did, and I would like to introduce my family here, who are here. I have my brother from Norway who came with his daughter, Ophelia, my wife, Sadete, son, Betim, Dafina, my daughter, Diana, Anita, son-in-law, Arben, brother-in-law, Afrim and Sofa. I have as a special guest who came a little bit late, but when he heard this, he couldn't not be here. So Suleiman Alichkay, his son Dilrim, and our German friend, family friend Frank. Thank you for being here with us to share this great moment. I don't want to take a lot of your time. I just want to make another point. Actually, 2 points. First is my father did this and never sought any recognition for it. He told to us, he wrote in his diary that he did save Jewish families, but he never thought that he should be recognized for that. He thought it was an Albanian moral duty to do that. And he died without knowing that he might be recognized today and also be recognized by a US resolution. He would have been very happy to know that. But we are happy as a family that this, at least, we get some recognition for our father. And my father would be even happier if the country of Israel, a democratic country, a friend, would make their effort and recognize Kosovo as an independent state, we are not asking for a payback because Jewish senators and congressmen helped us so much. Not to pay us back for what we did, because we were supposed to do what we did as an honor. And we are very proud and happy to do that. But it is the right thing to do. Kosovo should be independent. It is independent, but should be recognized and be a member of United States of America. United Nations, of course. I am confused. Okay, now,
51st state, maybe.
51st state, that's what I meant. Now, I just want to say, I left it for last, but this is the most important part. I've been with Albanian American Civic League and Joe DioGuardi from the 90s, from the beginning. You don't know how proud I am that I have been followed these two people here. They are great. They are heroes, not only my heroes, they are heroes of Albanian people, and thank you for all what you did and what you're going to do for our cause. Thank you so much, and we love you.
In each generation, it's been said very often that if we don't oppose ultranationalism and fascism in our time, it will return. And one of the most wonderful things about our own experience is watching the unfolding of the story that you heard from Annette initially with the archives that were discovered or handed over to Joe and Tom in Albania. But what later we would discover, and it only happened in about 2005, was that for Jews to get out of certainly the former Yugoslavia into Albania, there were other rescuers, and they were all Albanians, because they're Albanians in 6 jurisdictions, separated but contiguous. And Kosovo was central. And today, I'm very happy to introduce Leka Rezhniki. He is the great-grandson of the only rescuer thus far recognized by Yad Vashem, only because, I mean, there are others, but because, one, he played a leading role, and he'll tell you about that, a very important role, and also because there was still a survivor who could identify him. Leka is a young Kosovar, highly accomplished, and someone who's now dedicating a great, in his 20s, portion of his life to telling this unfolding story. Leka, please come up. I don't want to take more time because it's too important to hear what you have to say. We have been working together, by the way, for now, I think, 6 years.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Shirley and Mr. Joe, for having me here, and everybody, distinguished honored guests, and ladies and gentlemen. My lecture today is about Albanians outside sovereign Albania that saved Jews during the Holocaust and helping them to go to Albania. My great-grandfather Aslan Reznici was one of the leading members of the Nazi resistance in Kosovo, who devoted 6 years of his life to saving Jews. My grandfather, Mustafa Reznici, an adolescent during the war, assisted him, and for the rest of his life he preserved and carried on the history of our family's role and that of other Kosovar Albanians in rescuing Jews during the Holocaust. The narrative of Kosovar Albanian resistance to the Nazis actually begins with my great-grandfather, Aslan Reznici. He was a merchant in Kosovo as far back as in 1931. He made a living as a trader in Albania, Macedonia, Turkey, and Greece, and his principal colleagues were Jews from Skopje, Macedonia, and Thessaloniki, Greece. In 1939, on the eve of World War II, when their lives were clearly at risk with the rise of Nazism in Europe, reached out to my great-grandfather for help. They asked to come and live with our family in Kosovo if we could provide them accommodation and security. My great-grandfather brought these families into his home in 1940. Later, after Yugoslavia capitulated to the Nazis in 1941, my great-grandfather continued to hide them and eventually helped them to go to Albania. Bearing in mind the fact that our family owned a lot of land, my great-grandfather built a new stone house next to his own. The house was to accommodate and shelter lots of other Jews seeking refuge. Not only did my great-grandfather shelter and protect these families, but he even hired a professor to come to the house clandestinely to teach their children. In early 1941, 3 members of Reznici family died from an epidemic of typhus that broke out in Kosovo. My grandfather, Mustafa Reznici, was among those who contracted the disease. Coincidentally, that March, a Jewish physician, Haima Bravanel, was mobilized in Skopje, Macedonia, in a Yugoslav army unit. Traveling by train to Peja, a town in Kosovo, from which he was to continue on to Jakova by bus, Dr. Bravanel ran into Solomon Conforti, also a Jew from Skopje that was hidden in our house. Conforti immediately informed my great-grandfather about the presence of Dr. Bravanel in Kosovo and the prospect of his treating his son Mustafa. Conforti convinced Bravanel to accompany him to Deccan to treat my grandfather, who at that time was under the care of 2 Serb doctors who thought that he was suffering from malaria. When Dr. Bravanel arrived in Deccan, he quickly discovered that my grandfather had typhus and fortunately was able to save his life. Mustafa, who would go on to assist his father in the rescue of Jews, would pass the family story down to his son, Adnan, my father, and to me. Later, when Dr. Bravanel and his army unit were captured by the Germans in Kosovo, my great-grandfather went looking for him, found him, and helped him return him to safety in our family home in Deccan. During the 5 months that he spent there, Dr. Bravanel treated the local Albanian population and refused to take any recompense for his services, saying that he lived and ate for free at home of Arslan Reznici, and therefore there was no need to pay him. In time, Dr. Bravanel wanted to return to his wife Berta and family in Skopje, and my great-grandfather accompanied him on the return trip to Macedonia. As word spread about the Reznici family sanctuary, other Jewish families approached our family for help, and soon more than 40 families from Macedonia, Bulgaria, and Serbia were sheltered in our house, sometimes for days, often for months, until my family was able to organize safe passage for them to Albania. To camouflage their presence, all of the Jewish families were given traditional Albanian clothes to wear. The residents of Deccan knew that Arslan and his wife, my great-grandmother, Fatima Stavileci Reznici, were harboring Jews, but none of them ever informed the Nazi police patrolling the area. The transport of these families to Albania, all of which took place in 1943, was done with the help of my great-grandfather's Kosovo-Albanian colleagues, Halim Spahia, a merchant with contacts in the Albanian Chamber of Commerce in Tirana, and his partner, Hasan Remazerta. My great-grandfather and his colleagues were able to use their trading routes and contacts in the Balkans to secure safe passage for hundreds of Jews. There were two kinds of saving and sending and transferring Jewish families to Albania. One was by the main road from Kosovo to go to Albania, which was made by car, and mostly for the Jewish families for which they were able to provide false documents registering them as Bosnians. As you may know, Jews in the Balkans were Serbo-Croatian speakers and they didn't know Albanian, so they were registered as Bosnians. And the person that made this was the mayor's officer, Arif Alichkaj, whose son is here today with us. And for the others, for whom they were not able to provide false documents, they sent them through mountains to Albania. At the end of October 2007, my grandfather, Mustafa, traveled to Israel to attend the recognition at Yad Vashem of the saving role that Albanians had played during the Holocaust. In Jerusalem, he had an emotional reunion with Rachel Shelley Levy-Drummer, the granddaughter of Dr. Haim Abravanel, who had saved his life as a teenager during the war. He told me that as soon as he and Shelley met, they embraced. They could not hold back their tears, and they spent an evening sharing their memories about Haim and Berta. Shelley told my grandfather about their later years in Israel. I would like to thank Mrs. Shirley Cloyes DioGuardi and Mr. Joe for everything they did to get this part of Albanian history to light. Another fact that is very important is our cooperation with Albanian American Civic League as an association that we are, Kosovo-Israeli Friendship Association, in which are gathered Albanian families that saved Jews during the Holocaust, although lots of them are not recognized by Yad Vashem. We have a great cooperation since 2006 and on 2007 when they attended the event in Jerusalem, and also in 2008 when it was the opening exhibition of BESA at UN headquarters at New York City. Another dimension of this is our cooperation on attending the International Oral History Association conference in Prague in 2010, when it was the first time that publicly this part of Albanian history was brought to the public. It is important that Albanian American Civic League is holding an event in the US Capitol on the 100th anniversary of Albania's independence that emphasizes the saving role of Albanians during the Holocaust in all Albanian lands. I would like also to mention our cooperation with Yad Vashem, and this is also related to the Albanian BESA Code of Honor. As you may know, now we are about 70 years after the Holocaust, and lots of protagonists of these events, like rescuers and also Jewish families that seek rescue, are not anymore with us. And the importance is that on that time, the only thing important was to save a human life. And on that time, when Albanians' family in Kosovo helped Jewish families to go to Albania, the only thing important was to save their life and help them to flee safe in Albania, and nobody would ever even think about, now, yes, you write my name, that this person saved this person's life, and 70 years later, history asks for proven facts, which is very hard for us to find, but we are very happy that we have a great cooperation with Yad Vashem. We are working a lot for other families to be officially recognized as righteous among the nations. I thank you very much, and happy 100th anniversary.
Thank you.
Let me tell you very quickly about Rabbi Gutman. He was Mayor Giuliani's rabbi. He gave the benediction at both of Mayor Giuliani's inaugurations in 1993 and 1997, and he was the New York City representative to the United Nations, so he dealt with people from all over the world, also a dear friend of the Albanian people, and a proponent of yours in the United Nations. I'm proud to introduce Rabbi Gutman out of sequence to give the benediction. Thank you so much.
He has to catch a train.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. And I go back with the Congressman all the way back through our dear friend Ron Rettner, also to the 80s, so we're all younger now than we were, right? Okay. Yes. Avinu Shebashamayim, O Father who art in heaven, first bless the Rettners, DioGuardis, all the assembled here, all of the friends of the Jewish people, all of the friends of the Albanian people. And we should bless all the assembled here who have come today to celebrate and to commemorate 100 years, the centennial of Albanian independence. And again, this is people who understand history. I'm a historian as well, and this is the last 100 years, as was mentioned earlier, has been an amazing period for the entire world. And also, as a child of a Holocaust survivor, unfortunately my father was not from Albania. If he was, his entire family would have survived. Unfortunately, he wasn't. My father, though, did endow me with the spirit to understand and to thank people that helped Jews during the Holocaust. And again, to learn more about the nation of Albania, which as a corporate whole basically saved all of its Jews. Again, no other nation did that. This, for me, I know my father who is watching from the heavens, and my grandfather who perished in Auschwitz, who I am named after, they're watching this today and blessing all of the assembled here. So again, I say to you, thank you, God bless, and again, I know we're not ending the show right now, but nevertheless, Father in heaven, Avinu Shebashamayim, Ribono Shel Olam, please bless all the assembled here with long life and health for you and your families. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, before I forget, there is, believe it or not, in the room, an Albanian family that was recognized by Yad Vashem, the Nossi family. I guess they live in Maryland, and they saved a family of Jews called Menahem, I believe, and Gregor, the son, is here. Is that you, Gregor? Stand up. He showed me the certificate. Thank you for coming. So his family's been recognized in Yad Vashem, and let me put a footnote. And by the way, if someone finds that, I had it in my hand and I misplaced it running around. That is an official certificate from Yad Vashem. I'd like to have it back. All right? But in any case, Agim, just to follow up, one of the things that we're going to do, Shirley and I are very tenacious, let's say, and persistent. And the Albanians represent an unusual situation for the Jewish Yad Vashem. Why? Because for 47 years, the communist government never allowed the Jews who were rescued to connect with the Albanians who rescued them. But they received the letters, took them, and put them in the archives. That was the file I had. So one of the things that we're going to do, our Albanian American Foundation and Civically, Shirley and I, we're going to lobby Yad Vashem to make an exception for the Albanian people, because people like Ari Felichkai cannot get the award because there's a strict rule that someone has to be alive to give verbal testimony personally before that happens. Well, in the Albanians' case, look how many people died in 47 years after World War II. So it's not really fair. So our job is not finished, Agim. We're still going to try to get that medal for your father, okay? While we recognize Kosovo, while we hope to get Israel to recognize Kosovo. Now, let me finish this little geography lesson. Here it is, 45 miles. Now, why do I say this? We have to thank Italy for letting tens of thousands of Albanians across to allow them not only safety, but to continue their language, their traditions, their culture. And today, in these 51 villages, guess what the government of Italy does? It pays for the Albanian language to be taught in writing and verbally to kids up to the 8th grade. We don't have that in Montenegro, and we have that in Italy. Would you believe it? So, I just wanted you to see this, and Connie, you can start coming up because you want to hear from Connie Morella. You see this over here? When the Albanians came across, they built a huge fort and castle. Why? Because they knew the Turks were going to come after 1488, and they did come in 1525, but they were weakened so much by the Albanian general George Castriati and the siege of Skodra. Once they fought here and lost, that was it. They couldn't take over the rest of Europe. So you might say that the Albanians prevented Europe from being totally Islamicized if they had not done what they did. But here a castle was built. It was so big in Calabria that they called it the Albanian castle. Now, my Italian friends, I have to tell you this. Calabria is not an Italian word. It's two Albanian words, Kalaja, Abria. Kalaja meaning castle, Abria meaning Albanian. They converted it to Calabria. It's two Albanian words. Okay, with that.
Okay. I am Connie Albanese Morella, and I approve this message. And the message is, I just really want to thank the Albanian American Civic Federation and League for this celebration. It's nice, particularly in Washington, to be able to come to a celebration and to celebrate not only the 100th anniversary of the sovereignty of Albania, but to also celebrate the 100% rescue of the Jews in Albania from the Holocaust. And so you've heard all the speeches, you know all the history, you know what the commitment is to the future, and I do want to thank Shirley and Joe for what they have done. I know they've gotten applause before, but join me in giving them another round of applause. They are indefatigable. They are committed. And they have the longest events in history.
Thank you.
That's the one today. Thank you. So, thank you all. Here's to the Albanian, Jewish, American friendship. May it continue and be strengthened.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you.
And long live Italy. Viva Italia.
Just a couple of quick recognitions. Marco Kepi brought 10 young Albanians from New York in a van. He picked them up starting 4 o'clock in the morning. He formed a group called Ronjet Shqiptar, which means Albanian Roots. So the younger Albanians, they're getting educated, learning the computers. We've got also our friend Muci Jepper, the Albanian American Freedom House. He's here with his people from Maryland. Thank you for coming. And now, I don't know how many other organizations.
And we have Jim Volpe, who we must recognize, our very good friend, Italian, from Florida, also from New York. With that, I think we are well past our time. It has been such a wonderful experience. We've enjoyed it. We hope you have. Roft Kosova Ilir, Roft Shqipëria, for those of us who are in Albania. Happy 100th year celebration, and may we all look forward to a future of working together. Good afternoon.
And thank you all for coming.